You are now entering the Take Up, place to gather when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host, the managing editor of thetakeup.com. That's Andrew Wyatt. Is that Andrew Wyatt? Or is that Andrew Wyatt's brother? Is that another version of Andrew Wyatt? Hey, Andrew Wyatt.
Hello.
Every episode, we decide if one film gets to enter the Take Up's permanent cinema. Today is the beginning of a Christopher Nolan doubleheader. We're starting with his 2006 film, The Prestige. And then we'll have one more thing. I promise that I'm not going to make like a bunch of double or twin or brother jokes. I mean, here we are at the top and I'm spoiling the entire bit.
You promise it. You promise that, but I don't believe you.
Well, I don't think you can either, sir.
Well, in that, you're a lot like Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, because from the very first jump of this movie, they're basically telling us what's happening.
It's that, and like, in a way that surprised me watching it again, because I haven't seen it really for probably 20 years since it came out. But he's just right there. And it's like, that man in makeup. Now, who's that actor in makeup for no apparent reason? There is a reason, and I get it.
Well, let's back up. Let's back up.
I think it's kind of okay, though.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. Let's back up.
Okay. All right, here to talk about.
You said,
in honor of Christopher Nolan's huge epic, The Odyssey, we decided, well, let's go back and talk another Chris Nolan. We've never really talked about Christopher Nolan, a filmmaker I have almost no feelings for. And I don't know if that's a controversial thing to say. I
don't think it's controversial in certain snooty cinephile circles to say that Christopher Nolan leaves you cold.
Did you just call me snooty?
I mean, we're kind of both snooty. Isn't that entire brand on this?
I don't know. I did see your log for this movie, and I feel like, following each other on Letterboxd and then doing this thing that's like based upon, is he gonna like it or not? Anyway, yeah, I guess it's not much of a surprise to say I'm kind of meh about Christopher Nolan, and I try to separate my non-response to his work from the culture and a certain kind of film bro making cinema all about Christopher Nolan, and I try to just kind of contend with his work as it is.
I think that's the right approach. I mean, maybe not the right approach. I think it's the right approach for you because of what I know about your philosophy of cinema and how you approach things in general. I've always sort of resisted being lumped in that category you're talking about, the like people who idolize Nolan as the second coming of cinema or whatever. And
I kind of feel this way about being lumped in with the David Lynch people too. It's like, because there are just like Twin Peaks people. And I'm like inside David Lynch, and then there are people who are like damn fine cherry pie, and I'm like, I don't know. I think you're allowed to be different.
I think part of it is because the philosophy, at least that I'd always try to bring to any filmmaker, is an open mind, open heart about what they're doing and try to meet them on their own terms. But I'm also I think if I'm not mistaken, I think this speaks to both of us. I think we're also sort of resistant to grand unified theories of cinema. Like anybody who says, who makes absolutist statements about anything in art is always a little bit behind the curve for me. I just don't believe in making those kind of statements. So people who say that Nolan is the best filmmaker alive right now and there's no debate at all, I'm like, no, not really. And and I really like Nolan. I really like him as a filmmaker. I think he's really matured and grown, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. But I'm always sort of resistant to be seen as somebody in that camp who's just sort of like slobbering Nolan lover camp, I guess.
Well, there have been really measured and interesting rallies for Nolan. David Bordwell's really sticks out in his trying to break down Nolan's filmic grammar.
Mhm.
which to me, his grammar is really unique, and that is what I like about the rhythm of some of his films. But there are just overarching things beyond that that I kind of just slide off of.
Mhm.
And things that I think as we explore this film will kind of make sense, knowing me as a critic and knowing some of the things that I typically don't respond to.
Mhm. Well,
What
let's
so
let's
what,
let's
what
get specific about The Prestige then. What you said that you first saw it sort of around its original release, maybe?
well, I want to go back because if we're
Mm,
doing two Chris Nolans,
mhm.
let's make a big extravaganza about it. When did you come in with Christopher Nolan?
It had to be Memento.
Had to be Memento for me too. And Memento was such a kind of lightning bolt. It came in that time. It was 2001, right? Yeah.
Mm.
When the puzzle film seemed to be kind of like a like hold on, let me gather a thought. Maybe this is like more backwards looking that
Ironically.
or like yeah, haha. Shit, stepped into that. But it seemed to like grow with the internet in the way that, the World Wide Web, just like hyperlinking.
Yeah, it would
And
only be a couple years before, like, Lost would become this humongous pop culture phenomenon, and people would
yeah,
start, like, doing, like, Always Sunny flowcharts about Lost on their walls and things like
but they
that.
they they resemble those things too
Mm,
narratively, and
mhm.
and Memento did that kind of, but in a very kind of unique way. And I haven't seen it in a long time, but it felt really original at the time. And then I don't know. It seemed like Christopher Nolan, which is kind of like, is that guy going to become a thing eventually until he became like everything to everyone?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm try in my mind, it's funny you say it's a 2001 film because in my mind, Memento is sort of feels like the last '90s indie
It does.
sensation
No, it really does.
like, Pulp Fiction became an indie breakout or things like there's that whole series of '90s films that became sort of known as, quote, unquote, "indie" breakouts and became huge hits, and I think of Memento even though Memento is a 21st century film, I think of it as sort of the last gasp of that, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's a transitional film because it's hard for me to think of Memento coming out the same year, to a, at least surface level thematically similar film, which is Mulholland Drive. And Mulholland Drive is such like a like future looking film,
Mm,
while
mhm.
also, of course, looking back to the past. But is Memento feels so much of the era that came before it. But again, like with this, and we'll talk about it, and with Christopher Nolan's preoccupation with time, I think that it's just kind of really interesting, but also Christopher Nolan, like creatively, or at least as a storyteller, and maybe just in subject matter, never feels quite fresh to me.
Really?
And so, yeah. So let's get to The Prestige.
Mhm.
And so, did you see this in the theater? I did not. It escaped me entirely.
No, it came a little around a time where I wasn't seeing a ton of films in the theater yet. I definitely saw it, like, right away when it came out, like, I had heard that I knew that who Nolan was at the time, obviously, I think this was post Prestige came out between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, if
Dark
I
Knight.
remember correctly, so at that time, I obviously knew who he was, and I was interested in him, but I must have seen it on DVD. And so the irony of this of me suggesting this film for this episode is that I wasn't a huge fan of The Prestige when it first came out. I recalled thinking it was fine and entertaining. Um, I was very hung up on some aspects of it, like, in a bad way, like, there were really some parts of it really stuck in my craw. And then as I've revisited it over the years, it's come to really grow on me and become weirdly maybe one of my favorite Nolan films. I definitely think it's the best script that Jonathan Nolan has ever written, straight up. Um, and it's just it's one reason I wanted to talk about it. We could have picked any film to pair with Odyssey, right? But one reason I wanted to talk about this because it was a rare film where I wasn't that impressed right out of the gate, the way I was, say, with, Inception or Oppenheimer or Dunkirk. I just kinda I wouldn't say I slid off of it the way the phrasing you use. I would say it was more just there were things about it that nagged at me that I'd maybe not feel full-throated in my enthusiasm for it, and over time,
Well,
those have kind of fallen away.
what are those things though? Because I have to tell you, this I've seen this film a few times, a couple of times, and it is kind of like entertaining nothing burger to me. Like
Mhm.
I understand what's clever about it. It's a very handsomely made film.
Beautiful.
Um,
Beautiful
it
visuals,
it
yeah.
does have a very tricky script, but like tricky in a way where it is kind of a magic trick. It's like, look what I can do. Which I don't necessarily,
Would you say it feels gimmicky to you?
it does. It, I mean, it does, but that's baked into the thing. Like the whole thing is about kind of like the sleight of hand, and this film, while its sleight of hand isn't is very slight, I'll say, in that you can kind of see bits of what's going on, but then it kind of doubles back on itself and reveals even more to you. I just there's a lack of like humanism here,
Really?
humanity here
Really?
that I find really kind of just kind of inuring, like just
That's
not.
fascinating to me because I think of this as one of Nolan's most humanist films
And
alongside maybe
I would
Memento itself.
I would probably agree. Like I'm not a big fan of the man. Well, okay, there and we have 2 episodes.
Right.
Okay, I'll just say that. There are 2 episodes. But, yeah, so, I kind of rewatching it this time feel somewhat the same
Mhm,
about it. There were things that came into great relief, after spending a lot of time with Nolan, and Nolan being a person who's like, there are things that people talk about when they talk about Christopher Nolan. They talk about time, they talk about his kind of his film grammar, they talk about his women,
mhm,
and all of those things are, kind of easy now to pull apart from or pull away from the prestige and look at. But it's still like it is still so handsomely made that it's a neat movie to experience, but I don't thrill within this.
mhm. I mean, I think that's fair. I've always felt that criticism of Nolan that he's sort of a that he is a bit of a magician, that he likes fooling the audience and getting a wow out of them, but maybe is kind of surface level. As a filmmaker. I've always found that criticism valid. I wouldn't dispute it. I think for me, particularly with this film, as I've revisited it and come back to it again and again, and been continually impressed, my estimation of it has sort of increased over time in the way it has. Um, the humanism of it and the ache of it, it just leaves a very strong impression on me in a way I can't maybe have a hard time articulating. It's a
Where do you
very
centralize the ache, though? Is it in the conflict between the 2 men? Is it in the kind of dead wife stuff? And I don't mean to, like I don't mean to be really glib about it, I'm just trying to be kind of precise about it. Um,
It's no, I think you're right. I mean, part of it is all of it, but I really think it does come down to I think, um, Jackman in particular is really great in this. I really didn't appreciate him early on about how excellent his just his delivery and the fine tuning of his performance in a way that maybe is surprising in a character who's so sort of outsized and grandiose.
mm,
Um, that there's just a fundamental hollowness inside these men, and I don't mean that in a way of like, "Oh, they're badly developed characters." What I mean is that the hunger in them it's a movie about obsession, but I think it's about obsession in a way that gets beyond sort of the mechanistic duel of wills between these two complementary men. That the part that makes it interesting from a plot perspective, for me, is not necessarily the part that makes it interesting from a humanistic perspective or emotional perspective. The fact that these men feel so hungry. There's a black hole inside of them that's devouring from the inside out, and it only partly has to do with how they are kind of matter and antimatter, and that there's a real like Highlander feel here, where it's like Borden and Angier are so similar yet so complementary. There's no way that the universe can contain both of them, and one of them is going to have to fall. And that's just because it's couched in this more compared, and I say that in a way that makes it sound grandiose, like say the Batman movies are grandiose. But for me, part of why it works so well is that it's grounded in this slightly but not overtly fantastical Victorian setting, and it makes it feel real. And part of it is what you say; it looks so beautiful, and the texture and the production design and the steampunky Victorianness of it all gives it a weight. I think for me at least, that makes it transcend the sort of the fantastical elements of the material, if that makes
One
sense.
thing one thing I have to say is even though maybe some of the CG in this hasn't aged very well, or it looks good. Like
Uh,
it still looks great. Like
mm,
the very practicalness, practicality, the tactility
mhm.
of Nolan's filmmaking is on such great display here. And I think that's really fun for a film that is, you know, he uses magic. Like he will show you a trick and show you how the trick is done sometimes. And then other times, the magicians do things that, oh, well, they're magicians, so we just have to believe that they would be able to do those things.
Right.
It's such a kind of like neat shorthand in the screenplay and in the filmmaking. But I
How
just
did Christian Bale how did Borden put the manacle on the prison guard's leg without him noticing?
That is the exact moment when I started thinking about this. There is no fucking way. Like, there's absolutely no fucking way he could do that. But they're magicians, right? So, and we've seen the kind of magic that they do, and that they
And
are highly skilled.
we've seen how important distraction
Yeah,
is to
yeah.
the methodology of stage illusion. I mean, that's part of what it's so I understand the people who are sort of like, "Oh, this is just so filmmaking 101," but it just worked. I maybe don't think that anybody, at least
I
in
don't, I
American
don't get
filmmaking, is
that.
well,
Well,
just
so,
the sense that he shows us something and then he uses that, as you say, for shorthand later, so that he can keep things moving along and keep his. I mean, pacing is so essential, I think, to Nolan's filmography,
yeah,
and the sense of momentum is always essential to what he's doing. But let's get back to the beginning here. So what do we have in The Prestige? We have a duel, right? It's a movie
yeah.
about a rivalry, about nemesis.
But if we could,
Yeah.
if we could talk it about it in the way of what is really happening,
Mhm.
because you say it's a duel, but it isn't.
No, it isn't.
Because it's it's like a triangle. Because there's actually two men on one side. You've
Right.
got Christian Bale who's playing twins,
Mhm.
and the twins are exchanging places in order to be able to do, what is it? The returning man. What is it called?
The Transported Man.
The transported man. Oh, I'm gonna be so like old faggy man about all this. Like, what's called the returning man? Anyway,
What is it again?
yeah. um, but so I just I, I don't know. I think at some point it's like as a neat twist ending, sort of like I See Dead People.
Mm.
It's a neat twist ending, but what does it really do for what this film is about? Because isn't it more interesting that it is about these? I love the way that you say these two men who have like these black holes inside them and they can only like fill it with each other. Wink, wink. Um, it is the
Well,
gayest
kind of,
one.
but
It is the gayest one.
they can fill it with each other, but I think also more importantly, they need to fill it with the idea, I mean, part of what makes Angier and Borden so fascinating as rivals is because they do want slightly different things. That Borden is the auteur, right? He's the one who believes that illusion and stage magic has a value as an art, and his passion is to be the best of the best for the sake of being the best. Yes, there's ancillary benefits like money and fame, but I mean, this is why we go back to the line that Borden is the magician, Angier is the showman.
He's
Wh
the greatest showman
Yeah,
in
that's
my
funny. That's always funny in retrospect. But in Angier, this goes back to Angier's final lines in the film is that it for him, it was always about the adulation that he wanted to see the looks on people's faces. He wanted people to love him, but also to be awed and wonder and feel a little bit of wonder. And those are 2 very different things. And in some ways, I think the rivalry is less about, yes, it's about dead wives and about tit for tat and nose eye for an eye that eventually sort of spirals into that. But it's really also about how their philosophies of illusion, the philosophies of magic are fundamentally at odds. They want different things. They both have that craving, they both have that hunger, but what they're looking for is something fundamentally different. And it's almost like the existence of the other one offends something aesthetically or morally in the other one. That Angier is a bad magician in the sense that he doesn't have the commitment to craft and sacrifice that Borden/Fallon have, so that somehow offends them. And conversely, Angier finds Borden's sort of stiffness and inhumanity and unwilling and seeming complete disregard for the crowd to be like morally offensive somehow. There's a deeper, like, it's not just we hate each other because we hate each other. There's a deeper philosophical battle happening here between these men that maybe they aren't even aware of. They just know it's one of those things where you meet somebody at a party and you instinctively dislike them because there's something about them that offends you philosophically.
it's really interesting because, I think Nolan sort of positions himself as the Borden and not
Yeah.
someone who is interested necessarily in the kind of, or maybe it is about the kind of internal conflict he has as a filmmaker, and the other side being technology.
Yeah, I think all Nolan films are kind of about filmmaking.
Yeah, I think they just, I mean, I think at a certain point, like, they, they, I lost my train of thought. I think that at a certain point, though, his limitations are almost always revealed to me.
Mhm.
And they're limitations in that he is mostly interested in that conversation and less interested in the kind of pawns he's using in order to have that conversation. And I'm thinking about, again, I kind of don't understand really what this film is about. If it's actually two twin brothers, like, is one of them always kind of, is Fallon always the sort of submissive one who is like a tertiary character in the duel?
But
It,
there is
it
no
just,
Fallon. That's I mean, that's the key. I think so let me say,
but I
I've
mean,
seen videos, I've seen the
I
YouTube
know
videos.
they're twins though. Like,
Right.
that's another person.
Kind of, but I've seen the videos online where people like The Prestige explained, and they go through every scene in the movie and they
I'm
say, "This is
so
Fallon,
bored with that.
this is Fallon, this is Borden,
Okay.
this is Fallon," and I hate that because the film tells us, the text tells us that they are constantly switching places for all kinds of reasons all the time, and you're not supposed to be able to tell that they are one and the same.
But
What's the substance line? There is no you and there's no you them and you are
yeah,
both
yeah.
you. Like there that's kind of what's going on here. And the Fallon Borden distinction is really about like John and Christopher Nolan kind of keep it straight in the screenplay, but it doesn't matter for us as viewers which one is which. It doesn't matter if there's a personality divide. The main thing we know is that one loves Sarah and one loves Olivia. And watching the only way you can really tell, it isn't even about the costuming or Bale defying gradations in Bale's acting. It's about what is their stance towards the woman they're in the room with right now. and what is the screenplay telling us about how they feel about this woman? That's the tell. That's the only real tell, I think.
Yeah, but then to me, I just really don't understand, like, then then why kind of gesture towards the humanity of those being two separate characters. Those are two different people there. It just feels like an empty gesture to me. It feels like a very like screenwritery thing. It feels like a kind of like a thing that was workshopped in order to have this great twist.
Well, I understand that, and I think I agree with that to an extent. For me, it comes down to the idea that that in itself, the inability to distinguish between these 2 men is part of the tragedy of it, that they've sublimated the sense of distinctness and identity distinct identities in the favor. I mean, the line that keeps coming up is sacrifice, right? Sacrifice and discipline. What do you have to do? I mean, that's why they show the old Chinese magician at the beginning, right? Is to show the level of sacrifice that has to be done to pull off a trick on this scale. They're just showing us what Borden/Fallon are doing. They've completely destroyed their ability to have distinct lives, to have independence. I mean, the it's almost like an inversion of a typical use of twins where we're
Mm,
saying, "Oh, they're so alike." Well,
mhm.
the tragedy of the Prestige is that Borden and Fallon may have been distinct at one point, but they have had to flatten themselves. They've had to create 2 characters and both be able to inhabit it to the same degree, and therefore their their ability to have, I mean, they say in the film, "We both got half a life, and it wasn't enough." Like, that had to be enough for us, but it wasn't enough for the women in our lives, that they couldn't a half life wasn't sufficient. Borden Fallon have come to accept that the tragedy of that is something that they're willing to endure for the sake of their art. And there again, there's something there. What
Yeah,
Chris, what are you
I
trying
think
to
that's
say?
really
What are you trying to say to us, Chris?
yeah. Well, I think that's really beautifully put. And one thing about Nolan's filmmaking is there is a kind of blink and you might miss it. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of something where I didn't I would thought about that, but hadn't necessarily picked up on that, like that kernel of an idea there, because it's not. It's it's within the reveal of the twist, which is like it's very brief within the film, but that is such a kind of great kernel of an idea to explore. The way that those two have sublimated themselves into one in order for their art, like that. That's it's not that
Angier,
serious. It's not that serious, guys. Like,
no, I mean, that's
yeah,
the I mean, that is kind of the tragedy of it. It's not just that they've done this,
it
but
is
that they've
tragic.
done this for something so trivial in the grand scheme of things that
Mhm.
stage magic on the British stage. I mean, this isn't even, this is pre-media. Nobody's gonna see
Yeah.
this except the few hundred thousand people, a few hundred or maybe 1,000 people gathered for a few weeks at a particular theater in a particular city at a particular
Well,
time.
men love to be the best, I guess,
Yeah.
is kind of one of the things that this is about too. And
But
it
they say it, I mean, the tells are, I mean, one of the things I like about the screenplay is how shameless it is about foreshadowing, and, I know some people sort of stick on that and say, "Oh, it's so gimmicky," but I kinda love it the more I watch it. The way that when they're going to see the old Chinese magician, Angier can't figure it out, he can't wrap his head around it, and Borden sees it instantly. He's like, "It's not a trick in the sense of trap doors and you know, um, mechanics. It's a trick of discipline. It's a trick of somebody committing themselves so completely to something." He sees it right away. I mean, there's also that great scene early on where Borden's giving kind of a bad performance with a bird in a cage for Sarah before the day he meets Sarah and her nephew, and the little kid sees it right away. He says, "Oh, you killed it," and he's like, "No, no, I didn't kill it." He's like, "Yeah, but what about the brother?" And he's
yeah.
like, I'm like, they are putting it,
There there
Chris and John are putting it right there in front for us to see. And I'm ashamed to say that I did not, you made fun of the whole like, oh, Fallon, it's very obviously Kristen Bale. I
No,
did
I
not
didn't get it
see
the
it. I
first
did
time
not see it the
either.
first time
I
I
didn't
saw
get it
it.
the first time either, but watching it the second time, and I was watching it with my husband, I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't just fucking see it. He's just right there, and it's just obvious. But in Nolan's rhythm and the kind of musicality of Nolan and the way in particular I loved about Dunkirk, a film I don't love that I really appreciate is like his films and increasingly over time have taken on a kind of overall montage,
Mhm.
and I think that's really interesting and a really thrilling way to to make a film musically. But I think, a lot of other filmmakers have tried to imitate that, and that's kind of led to an entire like subgenre of subpar Chris Nolan imitations. And I think especially within television, you see that a
Yeah.
lot. And it's a way of like filling
I wouldn't
your
dispute that.
yeah, it's a way of kind of filling your film with like an amount of portent, but it's like kind of like empty thunder. Like it's just the sound and no fury.
Well, and it's interesting because there's another filmmaker who's very different from Nolan, who I think also operates on a similar wavelength, and that's Malick, particularly late era Malick. I think his
We are
21st century
we
output.
I have to say, I have to stop you because we are going to talk about Malik a lot the next episode, and that is all I will say about the
Okay,
next
I love
episode.
it. I love it. I'm excited.
So,
I'm seeing
no,
that
but
for
no,
our
but
listeners. I am seeing Josh has seen the Odyssey, and I am seeing the Odyssey right after this show. So
no, what were you going to say about Malik though?
no, no, just that what you talk about the musicality of it and the way that his entire Nolan's increasingly becoming a filmmaker whose entire like works can be regarded as giant montages. And
Yeah,
particularly I think late period Malick has drifted in that way as well. I mean, it's always kind of like that, but particularly like post to the Wonder and everything that's followed, I think has definitely felt like it's following that logic or that sensibility. But it's funny to think about because and Malick are such different filmmakers in terms of their philosophies and overall style. But in that way, they are kind of becoming more similar.
I think everyone eventually gets to poetry, don't they?
Yeah.
This to me is not quite poetic, but it is kind of like the momentum behind it is
The looping, I mean, people talk about structure, right? And the
mm,
looping qualities of Nolan's use of time. And I think here it's maybe the densest, people the Tenet has become a meme, right? But because the inherent structural shenanigans are baked into the plot itself. But I think The Prestige is maybe the most intricate version of this, and I say that as somebody who really loves Dunkirk and thinks that Dunkirk is maybe Nolan's best film pre-Odyssey. Um, we just really like the way that there are, like, flashbacks nested within flashbacks in this film, and yet I never get lost. I've never once gotten lost in this film, which I
no,
think is a
and
very hard thing to pull off.
it's really hard to pull off because there are no really kind of demarcations of time that you can use. There's no kind of like
There are a few.
aging.
Borden's there's Borden's fingers and there's Angier's limp. That helps a lot.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not tracking those things, but I'm also kind of like aware if I get lost, in which I do, I'm me after all. I can always reorient myself, and the kind of compression and decompression of time is always interesting. I think it's most interesting um as he moves through time, and I love the way Tenet has all of that kind of really like sticky, over explained science, pseudoscience to it.
Mhm.
And it's a film like that is both kind of poetically interested in time, but also time in the very narrative.
Mhm.
Um, but then Inception is so irritating to me in the
Really? Why?
same way. It's that, like, just full pages of dialogue about how something works,
Mhm.
and then me watching the way something works, and just hearing people talk about the way the film is about to work, and then it
You
does
don't
the
like
thing
the
that
explain it, do it
no,
kind of
God.
narrative logic?
No, no, no. I would much rather hear the explainer
Mhm.
and then
After the
watch
fact.
the thing. Yeah. and then watch the thing
Well,
unfold the way it's not supposed to go.
and The Prestige is really interesting in that respect because it plays with that idea in almost every possible combination and direction. We get the simultaneous back and forth montages where we're explaining something as as the trick is being executed, we're seeing it explained. We get the explain it first, then do it. We get the do it, then explain it afterwards, how it was done. Like, Prestige is almost playing with every possible iteration of that idea in interesting ways, I think.
It is because it's in some ways a kind of proclamation of what he's about to do in his filmmaking.
Mhm.
And especially with
Statement of
this,
intent, you might say.
yeah, and a statement of intent. And it feels more interesting as a statement of intent than in a total film for
Mhm,
me. I mean, let's talk about who Rebecca Hall and Scarlett Johansson. I know the Nolan's women conversation is a conversation that everybody has
mhm.
seemingly, and maybe it's been had ad nauseum. At this point, we don't want Christopher Nolan writing strong women, but for them to be these kind of like cardboard cutout characters, and it just felt
I don't
really
I gotta push back against that a little bit, particularly for Hall, because I think the thing about I love about Hall as an actor is that
yeah.
she never feels cardboard cutout. Like,
She's great. She's great.
she has this certain, like, I don't know what it is, like a brittleness to a sort of willowy
Mm.
brittleness to her that I always really love, and the hurt on her face in those scenes with Borden is just so acute to me. I mean, I don't disagree with the whole Nolan has can't write women thing. I don't think that's incorrect. I think maybe it gets a bit overblown to, like, become, "Oh, Christopher Nolan is the worst m Hollywood misogynist ever." Like,
No,
come on,
I
what are we
don't think
talking
that
about
at
here?
all. It's not that even that he can't write women in so much that he can write women as well as he can write men. It's that he doesn't give women a lot to do.
He doesn't seem interested in their
No, no,
interiority the way he's interested in the interiority of
exactly,
men, yeah.
exactly, exactly.
And
No, I think
I think that's a
that's
valid
exactly
criticism.
it.
I do love Rebecca Hall in this. Scarlett Johansson's fine. Her accent's of everybody in this movie, her accent's the wobbliest.
Yeah, yeah, and you're the one who can't call those things out. And yeah, the year before, within a year, Scarlett Johansson and Hugh Jackman made 2 movies about magic together. And what is the other film?
The other film. They made a movie together?
Everyone's gonna be so mad at me. That is Woody Allen's Scoop.
Oh god, okay, yeah.
I'm
Hugh
sorry.
Jackman wait a minute, Hugh Jackman was in Scoop?
Hugh Jackman and Scarlett Johansson are in Scoop.
I don't remember that at all.
Well, you shouldn't,
I've
and I'm sorry
successfully
I brought it up.
blocked that out. No,
Yep.
I mean, so I do wanna talk about something with this film in the context of Nolan's wider filmography, and that's his interest in technology. And
Yeah.
one thing I've really come to the gateway that my portal into this film increasingly is, and this isn't just about Nolan's filmography as a whole, it's the portal through which I view this film as a standalone object as well. Is this is the first film where I think Nolan is really starting to grapple with humanity's relationship to technology, and I think in particular this film, the second Batman film, and Tenet, it really comes out, and then obviously Oppenheimer, I feel like, is some ways the apotheosis of that. Um, the very as much as Nolan gets sort of labeled as a cold or technophilic filmmaker, my read on him has always been very has a very ambivalent attitude toward technology. Even though he himself is a sort of technologically oriented filmmaker, we obviously he loves his cameras, he loves he loves the mechanics of it all. Um, I
But he's
I
resistant to newer technologies.
yeah,
And to, I think, his credit, and that's what I'm talking about, the, like, textural, values of his filmmaking are
I
certain things I respond to.
if you saw my letterbox review from when I watched it yesterday, you know, I think the key that sort of unlocked this film a lot for me in recent years is one of Angier's final lines where he talks about, you know, why he loved the adulation and the roar and the looks on the faces of his audience. And he says, and as he's dying, he says, the world is simple and miserable and solid all the way through. And I just want to give I liked giving people a moment of awe and wonder. And that sort of not quite nihilistic, but pessimistic materialism, I think, is maybe the closest we've ever gotten to an author statement from Nolan himself. But it's also very key, I think, to like why this film in this setting in this place. It's adapted from a novel. I haven't read the novel, so I can't speak to the source material. But a Victorian, the Victorian setting is so key to the sort of first glimmers of this idea that this ambiguity, ambivalence, I should say, about the place of technology and how humankind is dealing with the increasing awareness that the universe is not magical necessarily. It's not magical in the way that our theistic and superstitious forebears might have thought it was magical. It's a magical in a completely different way. And wrestling with that and what our obligate in particular, I think our obligations to future generations with respect to technology and its use has become a preoccupation for Nolan. And I'm really fascinated with this movie as sort of the beginning of that conversation where he's using this he's almost using this duel. I mean, again, sort of the proximal plot is the duel of wills between these two magicians, but really, for me, it's taken on the cast of a movie about. I mean, kind of the No Country for Old Men thing, honestly, which is maybe the reason I enjoy it. I've increasingly enjoyed it. Is look at you smirking at me.
Um,
The dealing with the reality of a godless universe and what that means for us as a society and as a culture and how we're going to grapple with that, and in particular, how technology interfaces with that question.
I just and the only reason I was smirking at you is my cat has been a little, like, despondent
Mhm.
lately, and she is currently hopped up on the bed, like, flipping in circles, and it's only because daddy's podcasting right now, I guess.
Zoomies
And
are
it's
zoomies are
also she's
engaging.
being so fucking cute. If you hear my cat, just respect her. Respect her. I
So I don't know, do I
it
sound like I'm talking on my ass
no,
there?
you don't, but it's I just like, the way that this spurs that kind of thinking in you does not in me,
Mhm,
and I just it's something like what we were talking about last week with Isabel in Fateful Findings is like, is it there on the screen? And I I think a lot of what's interesting to most people about what Christopher Nolan does isn't actually on the screen because for me this is while it's like handsome and sturdy filmmaking, like it's also very kind of like proximal and dogmatic filmmaking in a way that I just maybe it's the point of the story of magicians is to bring it down to earth and have just like total coverage type filmmaking and like without a tripod, without like eh, you know, um, ostentatious setup. And it is so unfair to this film to talk about it in that kind of context, to talk about the aesthetics and Christopher Nolan's development of his screen aesthetics
mhm.
after having seen The Odyssey. Again, not talking about it, not talking about it, definitely trying to not talk about it. But it just puts it in stark contrast.
Well, I mean, I will say that I think this is maybe my favorite. Again, haven't seen The Odyssey yet, but this is maybe my favorite Nolan film from a production to design standpoint. I mean, period films always have kind of an edge in that respect, but I think just something about his sensibility and his attention to detail really suits this period so well. I've seen it so many times. I know the beats, so I spent a lot of time watching it yesterday, sort of luxuriating in those details, like the the pattern on the, cushioning inside the stagecoach that Hugh Jackman's riding up to Tesla's peak. Um, it's like, okay, that didn't need to be there. It didn't need to be that, like,
It's
detailed and
lush.
lovely,
It's
lush.
luxurious.
Yeah,
And
but also, like, down to, like, the way that prison yard looks and the iron this and the cobblestones and the iron of it all. There's something about his eye that really suits that textural aspects of the production design really well.
But I just don't know that you would get that without having seen it so many times. Like he doesn't really kind of focus on the world as much as he
Uh,
like is
I
inhabiting.
disagree. I gotta disagree with that because that is something I took away from the very first viewing. Like my first viewing was actually a bit more cold and was maybe more like yours. Where I'm like, yeah, this is a fine piece of entertainment and beautifully, handsomely mounted, beautiful Victorian production design, and that's all I thought about it. So that was always sort of in my mind since the beginning. He doesn't. We talked about some of your problems with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein and how like the unmotivated camera and how
Oh,
there's a lot of like
night and
leering.
day though. Like this film works.
No, but what I'm saying is that, as opposed to something I think with like production design-orama films is the filmmaker, maybe justly, is always attempted to sort of linger on things and let us drink in the beauty. I mean, George Lucas, the great genre filmmakers do this. George Lucas does it. Peter Jackson does it, where they just linger on the beauty of the fantastical shit that they're showing us and let us soak up in
David
it.
Lynch does it.
David Lynch does it. And every like every sort of aggressively mid period film does it. One of the things I really like about The Prestige is that Nolan doesn't do that. Like he is clearly, if you freeze frame it at any moment, it's clear that he's put it. Look at Borden's Workshop. It's an incredible piece of production design, but he never sort of lushly lingers on it in an indulgent way. It's just part of, maybe that's why I really respond to it, is that it's just part of the background, but it requires so much attention to detail. Again, it's sort of the magician's philosophy. It's attention to detail about things that don't really necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things because it's a blink and you'll miss it shot. But the obsession, quote unquote, speaking of obsession, the obsession that Nolan and his collaborators and his entire crew always exhibit to these things, I think really comes through in The Prestige because because the period detail is so important, but it's given so little sort of indulgent drink it all in, the shot length, between shot length and just the types of shots he uses. It's not really, he's not asking us to like look at how much good of a job my art director did. There's no shots like that in this movie, I don't think. So
That is a very interesting pin we're putting on the board.
okay,
Okay? Okay.
I'll save it. I'll save it.
Interesting pen for the board. I want to get to where we vote this in or not,
Mhm.
but this is our first film starring David Bowie.
Yeah.
So it actually stars David Bowie. I mean, when David Bowie turned the corner, like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
I mean,
Um,
he walks out in a field of like electrical discharge, like walks through it like he's coming onto stage, like he's going out to do a show. I mean, it's incredible.
husband says, I mean, they have to have someone big playing Tesla the way that they're hiding him.
Mhm.
I'm like, bitch, you are not. You specifically are not prepared.
Yeah, he's
But
great. And there's some like cute meta-textual stuff in his dialogue too, where he's like, "Oh, they wanted me to retire. I got a little too outrageous for them."
yes, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of fun stuff with him. I mean, just the camera absolutely loves him, even when his maybe his accent isn't completely successful. Sometimes he can be a little stilted a performer. I think he's best when he's probably I hate saying this. He was probably best behind the or in front of the camera when he was in his earlier days is what I'll say. And that's
I mean,
all
I
I'll
love him.
say
I
when he
genuinely
was
love him
little.
in both Man Who Fell to Earth and Labyrinth. I think he's really strong in those as a
Yeah, he's
character. Yeah.
he's just incredible. Like the screen loves him the way the my ears love him. All
But
right.
you're
All
right,
right.
the accent work is maybe not great. Like the I'm sure he knew that Nikola Tesla was Serbian, but whatever he's doing is not.
See, I was about to ask you where Tesla was from
Yeah,
because
he was
based
originally.
upon that, I thought maybe like Eastern European, maybe
No, he's
maybe he
ethnically
was
he's
just drunk.
he was ethnically Serbian, and I guess which at the time I guess was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Okay. Well, then
But that was
that's
part of, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a Tesla Edison podcast, but that was part of like the there's all kinds of weird like ethnic racist shit associated in the history of like 19th century invention. Like Tesla
well, if you want.
being sort of like the suspicious swarthy foreigner was part of the reason that sometimes he struggled. I mean, the same thing happened to Marconi, and like nobody believed that an Italian without a formal engineering education could have invented radio. Like it was like there is weird racist shit going on in the history of 19th century invention that this film only vaguely glances up against.
How far back into the archives do we have on this site? Not very far back.
Um,
I reviewed the film The Current War, the Michael
yeah,
Almereyda. That
yeah.
had to come out in like
Ethan
20.
Hawke, right? Wasn't Ethan Hawke in that?
No, you're thinking of maybe.
It was so memorable you can't remember who was in it.
Ah!
Okay, hang on. I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but that's a Tesla v Edison flick that wants to be The Prestige, and
Oh
I'm
no,
like,
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else. That was Benedict Cumberbatch and
and
Michael Shannon?
Daniel Bruhl. Oh, Michael
No,
Shannon.
Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult.
Oh, okay. Well,
A lot
that
of people
sounds.
wow, a lot of people in this movie actually.
It's not good.
No,
It's not bad,
that
but
wasn't
it's not.
between Tesla and Edison, that was between Westinghouse and Edison,
Oh
was
my
the
god, guys, stop fighting. Tesla's in it. Tesla's definitely in it. I
yeah.
remember that. Anyway, okay,
David Bowie,
Andrew.
fun. Anyway, David Bowie, fun.
Yes, David Bowie. Fine. Andrew, David Bowie belongs in the Take Up canon. This isn't my pick for him.
No, I
It,
know.
it's a no for me, dog. But
But I'm voting
what,
for it. I'm voting for it.
wow. Oh, you okay. So we will discuss next week
Mhm.
what I think maybe you just did.
Which is what? Double a Nolan?
I think you I don't no, I'm not gonna plant any seeds in your head. We
Mhm,
will discuss next week what I think you just did. Because anyway, you can probably like game out what I'm thinking based
mhm,
upon what I've said about Christopher Nolan during this.
mhm.
And yet, the Odyssey.
Alright, I'm excited. But no,
Yeah.
I love The Prestige. It's really, and I'm one reason I'm voting for it is one of the reason I wanted to talk about it during this episode was because it's a film that's grown on me. If it's a film like I love Dunkirk from the jump, I loved Oppenheimer from the jump. I think I've really come to like sort of late period Nolan a lot, and I still think films like The Dark Knight still stand up incredibly well, and Memento. But this is a film that's really grown on me the way other films in his filmography haven't necessarily. So I really wanted to highlight how sometimes you can have sort of a mid response to a film when it first sort of lands in your lap and you're not sure how to feel about it. And revisiting it maybe like reconfigures or rewires your brain, or you stumble upon something that I don't want to say that there was like a key that helped me unlock it or anything, but it's really just grown in my estimation. And I've really come to love it and become sort of a personal canon film for me in a way that if you had told me that in 2007, I would have been like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That
Mhm.
aggressively mid magician movie? Why would I like that?" So
Well, maybe I'll
things
get
change.
there.
Opinions change over time. Yeah.
Maybe I'll get there someday, but I'm always like a person. This is a conversation we didn't have and
Mhm.
probably should have with this, but I'm always a person. It's like e- every experience can be different with the
No,
film, no matter how many times you watch it. And I'm
absolutely.
definitely not. I'm not a Paulette in that you should only watch a film once.
No, no.
I've seen
I love her, but no,
probably
no.
10 to 20 films like 50 times each, and that's stupid. Just probably
The Vert
stupid.
I always come back to that line in from 12 Monkeys about Vertigo that the film doesn't change. You change. Every time you see it, it's different.
And that is the ultimate it is different film. Anyway, okay. All right. So now I have to do it this episode. I kind of figured you might. I was hoping you wouldn't because I'm gonna try fast.
Mhm.
Far from Heaven, No Country for Old Men, Taxi Driver, Rushmore, The Graduate, Secret Agent, One Battle After Another, Misericordia, Suspiria, Resurrection, Zodiac, After Sun, Messiah of Evil, Man with the Movie Camera, The Last Laugh, Hospital, Welfare, Killer of Sheep, Irma Vep, Army of Shadows, The Prestige.
Yes, you did it.
I
Wow.
did it. I did it. I did it. And I did
Wha
it fast.
yeah, maybe
Oh
that's
my
the
god.
lesson that you should just do it, stream of consciousness instead of
Well,
torturing
yeah, I
over it.
guess so. Just no filter. Don't think about it. Okay. But 22.
Yeah.
All
Wow.
right. We've been very busy adding things lately. I think we need to probably get into some new releases to find some crap to talk about.
Well,
What?
we also, like, are always over on votes, so I feel like using votes I think we should do more movies like this where maybe one of us is way more enthusiastic about the other so that we actually use some
So we can
votes.
burn some votes?
Yeah.
Well,
Metagaming it
okay.
a little bit.
So for now, we've got one more thing. Every episode, we round out with one more thing. One more thing. Oh my god, I gotta think about one more thing. Is it my turn? Is it your turn?
I don't remember.
Oh no, we broke our memory. I feel like it's your turn.
Okay.
Are you ready? Because I have mine.
Yeah, I've got mine. So
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna keep the magician thing going
Okay.
and talk about a film that I really like that is not well loved, I don't think.
Is it called The
Um,
Illusionist? We did
no,
not bring up The Illusionist.
no, we did
The
not forget that.
film about doubles had a double.
Yes. It is another film about illusions, though, a 1995 film called Lord of Illusions, directed by no less than Clive Barker.
That's a
Based
weird fucking movie.
It's a weird movie that
It
I
is.
fucking love.
Yeah. Tell us
So
about it.
yeah,
Sorry.
so for those who don't know, this is 1990 film, kind of like I think it was kind of a box office bomb. I'm not sure, and it's not very well regarded except like in certain like horror cult circles. Um, Directed by Clive Barker, based on his own novella, The Last Illusion, but the movie is confusingly titled The Lord of Illusions. Um, Starring Scott Bakula as a recurring character from Barker's overall cinematic universe, literary universe,
Oh, I
called
did not know that.
yeah, Harry D'Amour is a sort of a PI who also has like an occult bent and some not necessarily like occult abilities, but like he's familiar with the occult. He's kind of a John Constantine figure
Sure.
where he's like he's willing to take cases that sort of deal with the occult. And he crops up in a few of uh, Barker's novels and novellas. I want to say the most prominent of which is The Great and Secret Show, which is a great novel. Huge, dense, but very great novel. Um, but so the film doesn't like give us any of that context, although it does sort of imply like it sketches that character and says, okay, this is a guy you sort of know the archetype. He's a PI, but he also has like occult expertise. Um, and he's sort of drawn into this weird Manson-esque cult conspiracy involving real stage illusionists who are doing quote unquote real magic, sort of clandestinely behind the scenes. It's just sort of a fascinating film. It's not I won't say even say that it's great, but I've revisited it several times and love it every time. It's got a real stacked cast. Kevin J. O'Connor, Famke Janssen at maybe like her most effortlessly beautiful and gorgeous. Um Daniel von Bargen, who is sort of a great character actor who's cropped up on like Seinfeld and sort of but playing like a really great vile villain in this movie. This sort of like master wizard slash I don't know what you call what they even called him in the movie sorcerer, who's like also like a cult leader. It's just a weird movie with a lot of great. I won't say the effects have aged all that well or anything, but it's got a weird atmosphere, sort of slightly transgressive. You know, Barker's a queer filmmaker, queer writer. It's got a slightly weird transgressive quality to it that I really enjoy. A lot of really sicko energy and imagery in it. Shit like using tarot imagery, using body modification, using like why does the villain have a giant horrifying male mandrill on a chain as like a pet. They never explain it, but it's so weird
it's
and
so
creepy.
specific to the time too.
Very
Barker's work.
1995. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe he styled the times or the
Mm.
times styled him, but it is. I, I'm sorry. It was released theatrically,
Yes,
correct?
yes, it was a
It
theatrical film,
feels
like a direct to
very
video. Yeah,
Showtime,
well, it feels
but
very direct to video. Yeah.
like only in the kind of practical effects being not great, the CG not being very,
Hmm.
with the time. It's just it's still just like Barker's incredible original visions are still really thrilling to watch. I'm not like a huge Barker head or anything, but anytime I come across one of his works and I sort of just randomly put this on one night, I'm still just really interested in his world.
And Barker's approach to, I think he's often sort of viewed as a horror filmmaker and creating. He's obviously the creator of Hellraiser and uh, the Nightbreed and so forth, but he's also a really fascinating filmmaker about like he's a sort of a fan. He has fantasy novels that have like an occult tinge to them, and his views, like his very idiosyncratic, slightly queer approach to magic and the supernatural overall, and the cosmologies he creates within his novels are sort of fascinating. And this film is sort of a small bore peek into that. It's maybe the only, I don't think we're ever going to get like a feature film or a miniseries version of one of his truly like great works like Imagica, but in terms of like being a very cool small bore peek into his weird cosmology and his weird approach to the supernatural, I think it's a treat, and it has like great production design. The whole conceit of like magic hiding behind the veil of real world magicians is sort of
Yep.
compelling in its own right. He actually got permission to use the Magic Castle in Los Angeles as a location, and some of the scenes occur there, and it's just very cool and
Talk about a place
beautifully
I never want to be in.
beautifully lit. It just makes me think of like Arrested Development jokes, the society
Exactly.
of magicians.
You
But
know, we didn't talk about that with the Prestige. The other thing is I just can't
you
work
get
up any enthusiasm for a magician. It's
they're
very
called
Job.
they're called
It's very
illusions, Dad. Um,
drinking something before those.
yeah.
It's still funny. Okay,
The
sorry.
so yeah, I mean, I think that conceit is sort of fascinating. And Barker's not someone I think people look down on him as a filmmaker. He's made I think 3 films, original Hellraiser, Nightbreed, and Lord of Illusions, all of which I love. I think they I think Lord of Illusions is probably the least good, but it's still worth your time
Sure, but it's
seeking out on video. But he isn't often talked about as like a good filmmaker, I think, and some of that is him being very self-deprecating about his own directorial skill. But I think all 3 of those films are really solid, sort of indie horror entries and really worth your time.
yeah, it's I just looked it up. It's on Tubi right now.
Oh,
So
awesome,
so
awesome.
it's free with commercial interruptions. You know what? As these things go these days, Tubi is a really great resource for it has an extensive library, I will say. I'm not about the commercial interruptions, but the way they do it, seems algorithmically timed well.
Mhm,
Um, and the amount of ads are not. So this is like a co-endorsement for that film on Tubi.
mhm.
But yeah, Tubi's all right, guys. It's fine.
It's another resource, and it's free, so use it where you can get it.
I mean, sometimes, like when we were kids, the
Mhm,
way Andrew and I were quote unquote watching movies
yeah.
was like they had this thing called like cable television.
Oh, I'm even before that. I remember watching all those Godzilla movies on UHF stations
Oh
broadcast on
my
Sunday
God.
afternoons, like
What a
terrible
mess.
English dubs all cut up, but still, that was my entry point, how I
Yeah.
learned to watch them. So, Tubi's
What a
just a
mess.
modern version of that, right?
Well, so much better. Okay. All right. But
How about
so
you?
find that on Tubi. Where do people find you?
A Wyatt 76 on Letterbox and on my writings on thetakeUp.com. I finally am back to writing. I wrote an Evil Dead Rise review this week, so hopefully that'll be a more regular thing, at least with
Evil
horror.
Dead Burn.
I'm sorry, Evil Dead Burn.
I
Um,
would I would like an Evil Dead Rise. Oh wait, that is a candidate because we
yeah,
did talk about Evil Dead Rise
that's
on
true.
this podcast. But yes,
So
Evil Dead Burn on the pickup.
hopefully I will be getting back to writing more regularly, at least about horror. So
Well, my one more thing is actually a podcast.
Ooh,
Do you know
fun.
who Leon Nafak is? You familiar with the podcast Slow Burn?
I've heard of it, I know nothing about it.
S- Slow Burn was a series that came out a few years ago about initially about the Watergate scandal, and it had a purpose in talking about like the titular slow burn was about the way that scandal unfolded and how much time it took into investigating what exactly happened at Watergate Hotel.
Mm,
And it was a kind of hopeful narrative. It's like,
mm.
we've been here before, we can endure, we being Americans. And, eventually they would do seasons on the Clinton impeachment trial,
Mhm.
and some other things. But Leon Nafak has become a kind of a journalist who's well known in podcasting, sort of like a Sarah Koenig
Mm.
figure of Serial. But he's got something that's completely different. It's called Only Fantasy, and it is a 6-part podcast series about OnlyFans. And
Oh,
it
wow.
is the way that Leon Nafak and his cohorts have their finger on the pulse of sociology and politics in slow burn and really bringing things to a granular, like personal level is completely writ large in Only Fantasy, which is OnlyFans is a website where content creators can sell their content.
Mhm,
But what has ended up happening is that it's become a website largely for sex work.
mhm,
And he has an OnlyFans creator called named Gracie Canan, and
mhm.
she's co-hosting the show. And they are going through each episode, and they're doing like interviews, but interviewing they make us stop at an OnlyFans house,
Mhm.
which is like a house where a bunch of OnlyFans creators go
It's
and
just the
live.
yeah, it's just the sex work version of, like, a YouTube house, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But then they go into like the kind of relationships these creators have with their subscribers. And I didn't, not to get too personal, I know what OnlyFans is, but I did not understand what it actually is, in
Mhm.
that it is a kind of way to create these fantasies for people of these para how
Parasocial?
these parasocial relationships with these content providers that you are paying for. I thought it was just like kind of like an amateur porn factory, and
Mm.
it's a lot more than that. And it's billions of dollars
Yes.
worth of that. It has become quite the industry. Um, but it really gets down to personal stories about OnlyFans, and it's just such a fascinating and kinky and fun listen, but at the same time talking about the realities of it, and
The
gets
business of it
way
all, yeah.
beyond any the business of it all. Yeah. And what can be kind of horrifying about it too. But it gets way far more into the weeds than any episode of Euphoria season 3 did, in OnlyFans content creation. And just trust me, it
Well,
tried.
Sam Levinson always behind the curve.
Yeah, yeah, very much behind the curve, but that's Only Fantasy. You can find it.
Well, that's cool.
It's all available now, but it was an Audible exclusive, but you can get it on any podcatcher. Um, so yeah, Only
Fascinating.
Fantasy by Leon Nafak, and then you can find me not on OnlyFans. Um, uh, Although this is my experience with OnlyFans is like I have friends who do it, and one time I was talking to my therapist about a job I was
Mm.
doing.
Mhm.
She was like, "You should quit your job and do OnlyFans." And I was like, "Should my therapist be saying that?"
Yeah, that's my question. That seems bad.
Interesting. Interesting. So it's always,
maybe it's like they're getting paid under the table by OnlyFans the way that doctors get
eh,
paid by pharmacists, like
you know
pharmacology
what?
companies.
Maybe she was just telling me she's attracted to me,
Oh,
or that I could be successful.
jokes on her.
Well, she knew. Um, yeah, she's my therapist. She knew. Um, or you know what? Maybe she thinks I could just be successful at that. How do you like that? Well, that was
Yeah.
also 5 years ago. So anyway, but you can find me elsewhere online at OK Josh Ray and all of us at the Take Up STL.
And we're heading to Ithaca. Hope maybe it'll take a
We're
while, but
heading
we're gonna get there. It'll take a while to get there.
from Ithaca back to Ithaca with Odysseus and his crew. And oh, good lord! So we are fast forwarding 20 years. His latest film, Christopher Nolan's latest film. You've probably already seen it, maybe once, maybe twice. I know someone. This film has been out for 4 days in the States. I know someone who's seen it 3 times.
Jesus.
I will be seeing it again, and I don't do that often, but I did. I saw it
Especially
in
not for
70 millimeter.
For Chris Nolan movies. You don't usually do that.
No, no, I don't think so. I am interested to see it. I saw it. I'm not gonna. When am I talking about it? I will talk about it next
No.
week.
All
All
right.
right.
I'll see you back at Ithaca next week.
Until then, thank you to Ethan Tarantella for being president of the bank. For Kayla McCullough for social media, theme music by AMP, and until next time, I couldn't think of a David Bowie song. What? I love David Bowie, and I couldn't think of a song. Let's dance. Let's dance. You could always do something. I don't know,
I'm
man.
not sure. I'm the magician. You're the showman.